Good evening and warm welcome to all the participants. We are thrilled to have Mr. Vijay Gopalan joining us for this session number 208 on the WiseViews Leadership Conversations. Thank you, Mr. Vijay. Thanks for joining.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Sudhakar and Dr. Prasad. I think pleasure's all mine. Pleasure's all mine.
Great to have
Great
you.
institution. I'm thrilled to be associated in this manner.
Lovely. Great to hear those words from you. And I'll straight away jump into the introduction and then come back to you, asking you to start your opening remarks. Allow me to share my screen, please. So, WiseViews Leadership Conversations, we are at 208th session where Mr. Vijay Gopalan is talking about the journey from CFO to CEO, how to lead beyond the balance sheet. This is roughly around 15 minutes of opening talk, followed by 40 minutes of Q&A, and roughly 1 hour is what we have budgeted. So here is young and dynamic Mr. Vijay, the CFO of ENTELLUS Group. He is a seasoned finance and strategy leader with over 2 decades of diverse experience across aviation, infrastructure, investment management, and integrated business services. He is currently the CFO at ENTELLUS Industries, which is a pioneer in rare earth metals and alloys. He drives strategic business and operational financial leadership at the cutting edge of industrial innovation. Previously, Mr. Vijay held leadership roles that shaped industries. As widely known, he was the CFO of AirAsia India, among the youngest aviation CFOs globally at the age of 32. I hope it's correct. Was it 28?
Right. No, 32.
32.
28 is when the aspiration started, 32 is when it materialized.
Okay. Where he helped build the airline's financial backbone during its launch years by working closely with Ratan Tata, Tony Fernandes, and Ramadurai, and the CEO of Updata Services, UDS, one of India's largest integrated facilities management and business support companies. His portfolio also spans head of investments at the Tamil Nadu Infrastructure Fund Management Corporation and with Asian Development Bank, supporting government-led infrastructure initiatives and fractional CFO roles for high-growth portfolio companies. Prior to this, he has spent almost a decade with EY across India, US, and UK. That's very prestigious. He's a rank holder in first attempt CA. Mr. Vijay also holds an advanced diploma in marketing and sales from the National Institute of Sales. This is a good dimension, very, very curious and interesting dimension of sales added to him. He is passionate about teaching and mentoring. He has served as visiting faculty at the Loyola Institute of Business Administration and the ICAI, shaping future leaders with his cross-industry insights. He is also a corporate leadership speaker and trainer. And what is going to happen now is more interesting. Mr. Vijay's journey blends financial acumen with creativity. He is a musician, a former RJ, radio jockey, and even a Tamil film actor. He acted in a couple of movies or one movie, I was told. Very, very interesting. His versatility and constant reinvention make him an inspiring voice on leadership, adaptability, and the future of work. Hence, we have requested him to speak on our platform of WiseViews. Thank you once again, Mr. Vijay, for joining. I will also introduce my esteemed colleague, Dr. R. Prasad, who is the Senior Director at Academic Wing in ICFAI Group. He brings 3 decades of rich experience as an entrepreneur, as a corporate professional, and also now as an academic at ICFAI. He holds BTech from IIT Bombay and PGDM from IIM Calcutta. Welcome, Dr. Prasad. Thank you so much for joining. I'll stop sharing the screen here. We are all ears to you, Mr. Vijay. A large number of people have joined today. Quite curious to understand your journey and how you navigate the roles from CFO to CEO and how you stay ethically grounded. The compass of ethics is extremely important in leadership, and people would like to learn more about it during your talk as well as the Q&A. While I welcome all these distinguished leaders who have joined this evening, I also welcome you to start the opening remarks. Over to you, Mr. Vijay. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Sudhakar. Thank you, Dr. Prasad. So for the next 15-20 minutes, where I'll probably be sharing my insights, I'll touch upon the 3 or 4 aspects that you had actually mentioned in the mailers. So let's go over it, and I'll actually be more keen on answering questions from participants and let this grow organically. My leadership journey technically in the corporate world probably started from 2012 when I was the head of finance for Compass Group. Then I moved as the CFO of AirAsia, AirAsia's first CFO in India. And then for a brief stint in UDS as their CEO, then as the CIO of Tamil Nadu Infra Fund. And then amidst all this, I was also doing a lot of fractional CFO, CEO mentoring kind of activities. And now I'm the CFO of INTELLUS Group. So over this, I think there are a few things that we have picked up on the way. I think the first aspect that I'm going to be talking about is that the transition, especially for finance professionals, the transition from being a CFO to a CEO, or for that matter, a finance leader to an operational leader. I mean, let's move beyond designations at this point in time. I think that transition, I had the good fortune of going through the transition, however brief it was. But I've also seen a lot of people make this transition, work closely with them. For people who are really aspiring to make that shift, and I think if you're aspiring for it, it's fantastic that you're aspiring for it, because it's operations is it's a very different ball game. It's a very, very interesting ball game. Not to undermine what finance leaders are doing, but operations is a very different ball game. If you have the flair for it, I think it's a great move to make. At the bedrock of any organizational performance lie the numbers. Then, as they say, the numbers don't lie. The numbers are what it is. Having said which, the numbers are like are something like a binary form. And after or let's put it this way: the numbers are like lines, triangles, and squares. What kind of a drawing you make out of it lies in the eyes of the beholder. Now, if you ask a CFO, they're going to say that, well, that diagram is nothing but one triangle, 4 lines, 1 quadrilateral, 2 circles, and probably 1 pentagon. You ask a seasoned CEO, he might say, no, I actually see a nice small house by the mountains, which encompasses all these dimensions any which way. So that really is the difference that we will have to develop in our mind when we move from being a CFO to a CEO. The scope for creativity in the role of a CFO is very, very minimal, and quite rightly so. I will worry if the CFO gets too creative in an organization. I, as an investor, would always want to have a very, very grounded CFO. Whereas the CEO needs to be a lot more creative. I'll never be tired of saying this. The art of storytelling is fundamental to any leadership role, be it a CMO, CHRO, CCO, Chief Commercial Officer, Marketing Officer, HR Officer, Finance Officer. The art of storytelling is what is going to set you apart from a leader to an execution person. So as a CFO, I think how I tell the journey of my organization to a potential investor is very, very important. I just cannot say that, this is my EBITDA, this is my growth, this is my CAGR, but what's the context? What really is the underlying story behind it? What are we trying to pioneer? So that art of storytelling is required in every leadership role. But if you have to move to becoming a CEO, that art of storytelling really has to become the art of executing that story. And that is where the buck really stops with the CEO. For that you need it calls for a very different bit of flair, a bit of charisma, or a bit of long-term vision. It has all these elements. I've seen a lot of, as CFOs, you're trained to have that inherent skepticism. We just cannot buy everything. We are the watchdogs of the organization at the end of the day. You're going to have a marketing professional who's extremely optimistic. You're going to have a CEO who's running the race at a very different speed. You're going to have a HR officer who's blissfully ignorant of potentially a lot of the pitfalls that only the CFOs know. But I've invariably seen that the CFOs pick up the first signs of distress. So inherently, you're trained to be a bit skeptical and a bit cautious. But my experience is that when we move to the role of a CEO, that hat change has to be quick. We're not saying that the CEO has to be reckless, but you cannot be as overly cautious or conservative as the CFO. If you want to make the move to a transition to the role of a CEO from being a CFO, your first step is hire a good CFO. Hire a good CFO who will protect your blind side so that you don't have to be that person. You don't have to wear those 2 hats at the same time. And I've seen a lot of people struggle there. I've seen a lot of people struggle because their DNA is to be a bit cautious. As CFOs, a lot of times we are inward facing in the sense that our stakeholder group is very, very different. But as CEOs, I think it's extremely important to become outward facing. And if you're a CFO who's aspiring to get there, start your training ground at the time of when you're a CFO itself. Start meeting customers. Don't say that meeting customers is the prerogative of just the sales head or the marketing person or whatever. Don't leave it just there. You as a CFO need to understand what are the pain points of a customer. How at the end of the day, everything is going to have a financial impact. Don't shy away from being outward facing if you have that aspiration. Start understanding the market pulse better. There are certain things that the numbers won't tell you. The geopolitics behind a particular product. For instance, the company that I work for deals in rare earths. Till about 3-4 months back, rare earths was a term that not many people even knew existed. In the Mendeleev's periodic table, it was probably a footnote, the last two rows. And people didn't even pay attention to rare earths. Thanks to Trump's tariff and China putting an embargo, and when the entire auto industry across the globe came to a grinding halt because they couldn't get rare earth magnets, today the entire world is hearing about it. Now, one thing is, it is very easy to sit back and say, you know what, the impact of this is my metal prices are gone up by 60%, 70%. This is what it means to my EBITDA. This is what it means to my shareholders' wealth. But there is nothing that stops you from understanding what is the geopolitics behind the price increase? What is the geopolitics behind the demand increases? What is it that it means for the industry at large in terms of the long-term growth potential? Today, if you ask me what's the growth potential, I don't know it, because there is no number to it. But one thing we know is, if countries are going to move beyond the Chinese supply chain, there's nobody else. So then you wake up. I think this is typically what a CEO will have to do, and there's nothing that stops any business leader from understanding. It's a personality. I don't know how else to put it across. And that's something that you need to develop. It doesn't happen one day when you're given the role of a CEO. You just cannot say, you know what, today I'm a CEO, I'm going to change my personality. That has to be work in progress from the beginning. In fact, this was something that was beautifully told by one of my first bosses, saying that eventually, if you want to get to leadership, start thinking like a leader at this stage. You may be in middle management, but start thinking like what your partner would want to do. Start thinking like what your CFO would want to do. There's nothing that stops you from doing it. It's a conscious choice that we will have to make. While talking about making this shift from a CFO to a CEO, I presumed that we are grounded as a CFO. That's a presumption I've made, that you know what the role of a CFO is. You've been there, done that, and you performed. I'm going to take a step back and revisit that assumption from one particular lens, which is the lens of integrity. I think a lot of training for CFOs focuses on the job, in books, in tutorials, in videos. I think a lot of the training focuses on all the core skill sets like working capital management, ratio analysis, stakeholder management. What do you tell the board? What are the governances? What are the compliance? A whole lot of material that's available there. But a lot of times it pains me to know that integrity as the core for this role never gets spoken about. It always is an afterthought. Yeah, incidentally, you also need to be honest and ethical. Come on, integrity is beyond honesty, ethics. I mean, it's beyond all these things. It's beyond legal. It is beyond compliance and governance. Integrity is, okay, how do I let me approach it from a very different angle. In my view, amongst all the CXO positions, CEO, leave the CEO out because they head the organization, CFO, HR, CCO, commercial, marketing, technology, IT, take any of the chief strategic officer, whatever it is, there is just this one role, invariably in large organizations, that has a dotted line to the board of directors, which is the CFO. In a lot of organizations, CFO is the only other chief position that is appointed by the board of directors. For instance, at AirAsia, I was appointed by the board. There is a reason why this happens. The finance head's role has a very, very fiduciary responsibility. Tomorrow, when everyone is speaking multiple languages, the board, the shareholders, the employees will eventually look up to the CFO to speak the truth as it is, because the CFO has access to the kind of information that CFO has access to. It puts an onus to stay honest. Now, this is such an underrated skill set that at times it pains to know that a lot of CFOs do not even understand that what they're doing is wrong. For instance, you're talking about, I've seen in a few cases where they will push the provisioning from one quarter to another quarter to manage your EBITDA for that quarter. They will push I don't know how do you do that? You push the revenues from one quarter to the other quarter to manage expectations. Today, it has become so common that if I go and tell someone that you shouldn't do that, they look at me like I've come from a different planet altogether. They look at you like an alien. The first step is, I think we've invested our lives and careers in becoming a professional and not a commission agent at this point in time. I mean, pardon me, some of this could be strong, but this is how strongly that I feel about it. It is a great service, first of all, that we have to do to ourselves, that as a CFO, your scope for interpreting integrity is virtually zero. Just because I'm legally compliant does not make me ethically right. For instance, I love this quote. At one point in time, apartheid was legal, didn't make it ethically right. Our conscience should know that what we are doing is right or wrong, and that cannot be silenced by the mind. It is very easy to say, I know I shouldn't be managing revenues like this, but come on, everybody else is doing it. Therefore, by the law of the majority, by law of majority, I don't think what I'm doing is right. I need to keep up with times that are changing. I need to be. These are the reasons that your mind will tell you. But sooner than later, one day it's going to catch up with you. I can share this one example that's there in the public domain that I've been part of. I mean, I can share whatever is there in the public domain. There were pressures to do certain transactions in a very, very big organization that I was working with. I think a Google search will tell you. And long story short, a questionable transaction that I wasn't comfortable with, I cited that as a reason in my resignation and I quit, saying that, okay, this is what it is. I am not comfortable putting this through. What was at stake? Potentially a few crores of bonus, probably a seat in the board, whatever, a whole lot of things. But the only question that you ask yourself is, did you invest 4 years of your prime life burning through the midnight oil and studying through one of the most difficult courses in the country, which is CA, all for that one more, all for that bonus, or did we really do that for that? And also it helps when you come from a fairly grounded family, where you go meet your parents and can you share this with them? You probably can't. And then so you don't want to do stuff that you're not proud of sharing. You use that as a reason and quit. And within 12 months time, the entire thing underwent, it just went topsy-turvy, where the precise transaction that we had said I will not put through became the bone of contention for a CBI inquiry. At that point in time, for the next 6 months, I was struggling to find a job. After I quit that organization, it wasn't easy to find a job. But when the CBI inquiry happened, I can promise you one thing. There was one person who slept extremely peacefully from that organization, and that was me. Now, as professionals, I think a lot of times I get asked, I used to teach at the CA Institute for about 10 years. I used to be a guest faculty at another MBA institute. I used to get asked this question: how do we become successful at a young age? At 32 CFO, how do we do that? Terribly overrated. Success at a young age, first, I think it has multiple. First of all, what is success? Getting a designation. I can tell you, I've been there, and I can tell you the futility of it. One day, I mean, for the 2 years I was riding high. The moment I lost the job, I was a nobody in the scheme of things. So first of all, how do we define success? Is it by the money that we make? Is it by the designation that we have? Is it by the car that we drive? I think that definition we first need to be clear about ourselves. So once you define success, then comes at a young age. What is young age? If you ask me, I know people who have made it a CFO at the age of 25. 32 is young. I don't know. I'm 45 today. I still feel young. I still feel I have a good 20 years of career. I probably have just hit my mid-career now. I still have a long way to go. You ask my father, when he tried to reinvent himself at 60, he was perfectly okay to reinvent himself at 60. He probably thought at that day he was still young for reinventing himself. So what is young age? So I think it begs a lot of these questions in our corporate life when we focus on some of these things. I mean, great. I think integrity is one aspect to it, to becoming a good CFO. But then what is success? What is the right age to achieve that success? Once I've achieved it, do I move to becoming a CEO? Is that a bigger success? Once I become a CEO, should I become the chairman of the board? Does that define bigger success? Then from a chairman of this company to a 1,000 crore company to a 5,000 crore company, where do you draw the line? So in your journey, I think I'm going to stop at this point in time. I think I've spoken for about 15, 20 minutes. I'm just going to suffice it to say there are a few takeaways for us. Firstly, as professionals, and especially as finance professionals, if you're aspiring to go to the corner office in the finance professional, your AI, your management skills, all that is needed. But at the bedrock of it, if there is an integrity compromise, there is no coming back. I will assure you there's no coming back. And if you want to be successful in that, every other skill set can be acquired. Integrity is the only skill set that you'll have to develop from the early stages. It's never late to do that. Secondly, when you have to move from a CFO to a CEO kind of a role, it's great, but the lens with which you look at everything necessarily has to change. The lens moves from numbers to impact. The lens moves from cash flows to ideas, from CAGR to portfolio growth, or as I love saying this, if you're a CFO, you'll be looking at growth from a sales perspective. If you're CEO, you'll be looking at it from business development and new avenues perspective. So there are a lot of those lenses that you need to change. And one last note, if you don't want to make that shift from CFO to CEO, perfectly all right. Don't think that you're any less aspirational. Some people love thriving in the rigidity of a CFO rather than the ambiguity of a CEO that they're used to operating in. So it's perfectly okay. So there's no right or wrong in it, but be clear whichever way you want to swing. And I'll take a pause here, Mr. Sudhakar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vijay. I think you have spent a lot of time in defining what is integrity, which according to you and which is easily acceptable, that it is beyond ethics, beyond legal, beyond all these things. Integrity is something that you develop over a period of time. It is not something which is a skill that you pick up, like what is needed to actually stay current at a different point in time in your career. That is a skill that you want to pick up to stay current. But integrity is at the bedrock of your success, especially when you are aspiring to shift from the roles of a CFO to the CEO. I think you spent good time explaining that, and I take that as a major takeaway of how you look at it in terms of the mind shift from wearing one hat to wearing multiple hats. Personality traits that will also help you in terms of being an extrovert versus introvert, being customer facing as a personality vis-a-vis talking to a large number of people within the internal stakeholder management group. I think the shifts are many, and those who are desirous of making the shift will definitely have to navigate the extremes of rigidity versus ambiguity. That's a very important takeaway that you have mentioned. And I'm also quite amused about the fact that you have touched upon, since you have made the journey yourself at an early age, you have touched upon how one can develop that personality over a period of time, and it cannot happen overnight. Just because you desire for it, it's not possible. You will have to develop it over a period of time. And then if you're so strong about that wish, start working right away at that. So very soon you will be there. But also interesting is the art of storytelling and the art of executing those stories. These are also very important takeaways for us when you are working on the mindset shift that's required to make this transition. Beautiful. All in all, this leads us to some interesting set of questions in the next 40 minutes that we have. And these questions will come in two clusters. The first cluster will be taken up by Professor Prasad, and I'll come back for the second cluster. During my cluster of questions, I will also open mic for the members in the audience to raise their hand for talking to you directly as well. I once again acknowledge the presence of large number of people from the CA community that I can see. The entrepreneurs, the CA entrepreneurs also have joined. People from media have joined. Education, technology, and media also have joined. So I welcome all of them once again for this wonderful session of moving from the role of CFO to CEO, and how integrity becomes the bedrock of this shift, and how we need to lead beyond balance sheet. Thank you so much for setting the ground. Over to you, Professor Prasad, for the first cluster number one.
Thank you very much, Professor Rao. Thank you, Mr. Gopalan, for what I would call highlighting the true north principle, which is central to all that we do day in, day out, and which makes a society worth living in and humanity being worth born into. So let me, first take you to a question, not necessarily in a business, but now I'm taking it to a global level. And we know that, ethics and integrity, there is a contextuality involved in it. We've seen it in our epics, Mahabharata. I mean, people interpret things they think it's ethical. I mean, they think it's integrity is there. But when you look at it from a different lens, it is not there. I mean, they're so convinced that it is there. So different leaders have different views, and culture and values play a role. So what is okay in one culture is not okay in another culture. So let's get the Trump's tariff saga in here. This is an example. And what the Trump administration thinks about it in terms of what integrity is and how they should go about doing a certain kind of thing is very different, obviously, from what, as a country we think about it. Now, the question is that in the face of this, how do you think Indian industry, India should respond and lead from the front globally if we interpret it the way we understand integrity?
Great. I think it's a very nice way to put how you put it, Dr. Prasad. My view is that, especially on this tariff thing, I don't see that as an integrity issue, honestly. I don't think it's unethical. I think it is all about trying to protect his interest And if we are collateral in the process, so be it. Let me put it this way. For me, the way I would define integrity is, am I doing anything that doesn't let me sleep in the night peacefully? Would I be proud to tell this to my children? Would I be proud to tell this to my parents? If not, then there's something fundamentally wrong in how we are approaching it. Would I bribe someone? I won't. Would I massage the numbers? I won't. So these are things I would never be proud of sharing it with anyone. And that's something, then it's a no-go. I wouldn't. Just the way, would you cheat on your spouse? I wouldn't, because that's something that I can't go and tell my spouse also. So that is an integrity breach. In the tariff context, here is Trump looking out for the American interest. And I will tell you, in a lot of ways, because of this tariff, and I've been following it very closely, thanks to the tariffs that he decided to levy on China, is when rare earth as an industry came out into the open. And now the company that I work for, ENTELLUS, has suddenly become a lot more valuable than what it was. The way the Indian government, in my view, the way the Indian government is currently handling it, by putting their people first, just the way Trump has been doing, trying to put the Americans first, I think it's perfect. In fact, a lot of people who follow leadership lectures would have heard of the 4 Ps, people, profit, purpose, and planet. At least the first 3 Ps is what each of us are looking for. He's looking for his people. He's looking for the profit, to profit the Americans. And the purpose is to go about, and the purpose is to secure that geography, just the way we are looking at it. The response from India, in my view, has been extremely measured. It has been very, very mature. But at the same time, it has been very firm. It's a masterstroke that our Prime Minister probably is going to be meeting the Chinese the Chinese premier along with the Russian premier. So I think I'm fairly confident that with or without the American support, we are a very, very inward-looking economy, the Indian economy. Of course, there is going to be an impact because of the American tariffs, but would we be broken like some of the other geographies that are completely dependent on America? Definitely no. And I think we should bide our time. Sooner than later, they will blink.
Thank you. I think you have highlighted the point that there are different views to this, and there is one country representing its views, and we are another country representing our views, and that this is an opportunity that we can redefine ourselves or even rediscover ourselves as to what a country we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah. I'll go to the next question. We started with the word ethics. We have a larger word now, integrity. So, there will be a certain degree of ambiguity in the way I speak about it. You have been in large organizations and you've looked at systems and process from the CFO view, and you would have heard a lot of feedback from the stakeholders also. How do you build ethics integrity in systems and process that may not be built for ethical outcomes? You gave an example yourself.
Oh, that's a beautiful question, Dr. Prasad. It's a beautiful question. Now, the reason why I call it beautiful is that is the most difficult thing. With all these years, I've been struggling to build this into the system. Whatever you try and do, it's in human nature to find a workaround. Look, this will work. The process can work as good as the people following the process are following it in substance. Otherwise, you build the best of processes, it can easily be bypassed. If you're a budding entrepreneur who wants to build a very honest organization, I think, first of all, it needs to start with a few pointers. Firstly, you should start rewarding open communication. If somebody is giving a feedback, let's say the foreman in a manufacturing company is trying to give a feedback, you should reward the honesty with which they say. The moment you start stifling their voices with justifications, if let's say somebody is saying, this is not working, and if you say, I know this is not working, but because of these, the moment the word but comes, you've already stifled their voice. You've already gone into a defensive mode. I think this needs to start from the leadership to say, you know what, when you're giving me a feedback, I'm going to take that feedback. I'm going to take it seriously. During the Me Too movement, there was this very famous thing where people countered it by saying men too. It's not just the women that undergo, not all men. And the only viewpoint was, when I'm actually coming out with a problem, don't counter it by saying not all men. Probably not all men is right, but this is not the forum for you to say. First, acknowledge the fact that I'm having this problem. And that's exactly what we as leaders should also do. I think the moment everybody feels heard, that is going to be the start point of they trying to work in a slightly more honest manner. Secondly, I think the governance framework should be a lot more rewarding and guidance driven than prescriptive. The moment we start prescribing every small activity that a person has to do, we're all human beings. Then it's going to get very, very stifling for most of them, and they are then going to try and break the rules. This is exactly how an adolescent behaves, right? You start putting too many rules to a teenager, they'll feel stifled and they'll start hiding things from you. So I think we need to have governance systems which rewards open communication, but at the same time also which is guidance and prescriptive. Third, I think the punitive action for integrity should be extremely severe and it should be informed. You can't say that, you know what, I did something unethical just to benefit the company, and then you as leader saying that, you know what, actually it benefited the company, let's not punish them. The end should never justify the means. A lot of times the first two aspects are also considered by a lot of organizations, but when it comes to the third aspect, where the moment they say, you know what, I didn't do this because for my personal gain, it is to benefit the company, we actually sit back and think, actually they're right. But you break the rule once and then this is going to become a habit. So I think if I were to give 3 examples, this is how I would probably start building integrity and ethics into the processes that I subscribe.
Fantastic. I think there's the power has gone off where I am, but I hope I'm being heard. So I'll continue speaking. This takes me to the third question. You have covered it in a certain way in what you've said in terms of, some principles, and all those 3 principles are beautiful. They build on values and culture, and, they draw the red line pretty clearly. Now, if you look at how these principles can be, become part of organization culture, and you look back at your experience, do you see some good experiences that you could highlight where this actually took place? You tried something and it worked in that particular fashion, from the principles that you have mentioned, the 3, or maybe something else?
I don't know. I'm very proud of the team that I, for instance, had in one of my the large organization that I worked in. I was very, very proud of that team. So much so that team, there were 2 things. One, the moment they sensed that there was some kind of a kickback that's going to happen, they wouldn't care about hierarchy. They will keep me informed, but they will go pick up that issue directly with that person involved, saying that, sorry, this is something that I'm not going to allow. And I saw this happening quite repeatedly, where that the person in question, it could have been to obtain a license, to hire a consultant to do. But that person would come and say, Vijay, I'm having a problem with your team. They're doing this. I'll very clearly say, you know what? I respect the fact that you've come to me, but on this particular issue, if you can convince them, I'm happy to sign off. So there was autonomy given to the system that was built gave autonomy for them to take a decision without worrying about being overruled by someone senior. Otherwise, they look like jokers, right? I mean, fighting for the right thing, and then there is someone senior who will come and overrule it. Then they're not going to follow it. So I think this worked like magic for the time that I was there. I wish to believe even after I quit, it worked, because I had cited this as a reason when I quit. I wish to believe that the team did carry on because they saw that CFO quit because of this. Then over a point in time, the team changed. So I've seen this work like this. I've seen a lot of practicing chartered accountants, some of them my students. I've met them at varying points in time. Over the last 15 years, let's say I've handled close to about a few thousand students in my management sessions. It is unbelievable the number of people who will come and say, sir, that's one thing that I very clearly remember from your session is how we should maintain our integrity when we are in practice. And this is not 1%, 2%. It will be people from across batches who will come and say, which means now they have also started thinking about building processes within their own domain to ensure that they will not do any monkey business. You know what I mean? So I think it is possible to build it like that. Give autonomy. Don't overrule it. Don't trivialize it. Don't make it utopian. Don't make it sound like it is some kind of a ideal position to have. Make it practical. Make it an everyday, day-to-day thing. I think this will work, Dr. Prasad.
I think you have given a beautiful example. And I think if I have to understand it, as a leader, you have, your team has understood what you mean as principles. And you have given the action power to them. And that has come because it has been advisory and guidance and not statutory. And you have given them the freedom to go and implement it the way they want. And you have stepped back. And in terms of what you told in one of those instances, that you'll do it as long as they do it, as long as they agree to it. I think that is far more powerful. It's a very powerful method of embedding something like that kind of a culture into the system, and it stays far more long than any rule or any fine.
But I'll tell you this much, Dr. Prasad, it's not easy. And anyone who's trying to implement it, don't be disheartened. You will be overruled at times by your CEO. You will be overruled by your board. You will have to soak it in and ensure that it doesn't percolate down your team and it doesn't deflate them. So you will have to bear the brunt of it. So it's not easy.
Absolutely. And all such things which relate to integrity are not very easy. And if you take the Mahabharata itself, there are very few people, who one can debate are at that level. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I have another question, but I'll hand it back to Professor Rao. We just have about 20 minutes left.
Thank you, Prof. I have a couple of questions and I'll go with the first one, Mr. Vijay. The first one is, did you ever feel that you were boxed into what is called a finance guy kind of a tag?
Oh, of course. How many times?
How did you break out of that narrative?
Oh yeah, till date I feel stifled by the fact that I'm a finance guy. I mean, I keep telling this to my wife, I keep telling this to my family and friends. Well, how did I break out of it? After 8 years at Ernst & Young, I decided to quit my job and go and try my hand in movies, in computing, emceeing. I wanted to do that. Then I came back to AirAsia. AirAsia gave me a semi-operational role also. I was a secondary accountable manager along with my CEO. So that helped me. Even in the current role that I'm in, I think my peers let me dabble into a bit of operations if I want to. But yeah, to answer your question, till date, yes, it still does happen.
Yeah, correct. But that is something that we need to grapple with as a career constant. Throughout it will come up. Yeah.
That's right. And then you find your own avenues. I mean, for a lot of people who develop some hobbies, you'll figure it out.
While I'm tempted to ask you about your movies, I'll keep it to the last. I'll come back to it later so that you're not disappointed. We are not asking about your role in movies also.
No, I can tell you this much. I thought I was my boss beautifully put it. I thought you were a lousy accountant and you went to movies, but trust me, you're a lousier actor, Vijay, he said.
Good. So the second and the most important question that I have is about your current role in the rare earth sector. This is actually policy heavy. This is strategic. This is very different. How do you apply the difficulties of becoming a CFO or CEO or the leadership role difficulties while navigating this emerging sector? It is not an established sector; it's an emerging sector. Therefore, how do you look at it?
Honestly, as a CFO, it's a lot more easier to be the CFO of an emerging sector organization than being in the operational role. Because as a CFO, I think your learnings are fairly consistent across industries, which is why I kind of could move across multiple industries. Right from my Ernst & Young days where I was handling oil and gas and power, right up to here. But one thing is, as an emerging sector, you're right, we don't have a playbook. We don't have any precedents, and the only precedents is available, for instance, in our industry is in China, which is kind of shut for us. We have no idea. So in a lot of ways, it helps us because you're not weighed down by the baggage of the past. You can ask all the silly questions. You can make the silly mistake saying that you didn't know this existed. But look, you go and ask a defense tech company, they'll say the same thing. We don't have a playbook. We kind of did it from the outset. You ask Flipkart when they started off, they didn't have a playbook. So I think this is a cycle. If you like these kind of new avenues to grapple with, if you like the ambiguity, then I think it's a great space.
Very interesting. Just a question dropped in. One of the members in the audience who has keyed in this question would like to understand your commentary on the CFO role in the Satyam case. I mean, I'll leave it to you. You can answer it or leave it.
Okay, I'm not going to get into the details of it because there are multiple conflicting views on what happened in Satyam case. I'm just going to say one thing that what has happened was very, very unfortunate. I think the Satyam case gave the future CFOs like my own self a lot of material to rely on what not to do. Let me repeat, I am not ascribing any intent to the then CFO or for that leadership at this point in time. It's not in my place to do that. But it did give us a lot of, it made us a lot more detail oriented. It made us realize that we cannot get too adventurous or creative with finances. That's where I started by saying that we don't want creative accountants. So that's my view. I think that also opened up conversations in India. Globally, we saw Enron. That was India's Enron. That opened up conversations about integrity, governance, and a whole lot.
Excellent. Yes, I think we should keep talking about it and then draw our own answers to dealing with such naughty, difficult issues. One associated question is, as a leader, one of the challenges is to retain talent, the right kind of talent. What is your mantra to actually overcome this challenge of retaining the right kind of talent?
Sir, I think this, irrespective of whichever domain you're in, wherever in the hierarchy you're in, as a leader, I strongly believe that your first allegiance lies to your people. I think there are no two ways about it. Some people will say your first allegiance lies with your shareholders, with your customers. Sorry, it lies with the people who have trusted you and who have come to you. And a person reporting to you has joined you. Okay, there is a salary component, but somewhere they've liked you. It's not as if they also don't have options. It is our responsibility to ensure that they grow. If not in hierarchy, at least as a professional, they should grow. At least as a person, they should grow. There should be something to take away from you as a leader for them. The moment, I believe, the moment you have this perspective, telling that, you know what, my people are important to me, I will not throw my people to balance my profits, which means I'm not going to lay off people just to balance my books of accounts. The moment that trust happens, I have seen that retaining talent is never a challenge. Because again, it boils down to integrity. If you're honest to your own people, if you truly mean it, I have never, in my career, I've never had a problem in retaining good talent. Never.
Excellent, excellent. That's a very, very powerful and genuine display of your mindset that, you know, people are extremely important to you, and that cuts across very nicely. If you actually reach out to them, talk to them, make them feel important, it works. And in your
Yeah,
case,
I mean, it's so funny, Dr. Mr. Rao, because let's say you're walking into an office, somebody wishes you a good morning. I've seen so many times people they don't maintain eye contact. They just nod their head, wishing good morning and going. What? It will take half a second to just look them in the eye and wish them back.
yeah.
It starts from there, the culture.
It starts from there. Probably it goes into a different level and layer of inclusiveness as well, in terms of integrating their views and opinions, in terms of making them feel part of your decision-making process. Even if you don't have to take all the decisions or all the suggestions given by them, you'll at least make them feel important, that their opinion.
Absolutely. They need to feel heard.
Yes, they need to be heard. They need to be heard, and heard genuinely.
Exactly.
I think there's no room for acting, however good actor that we are. In your case, you are a bad actor, as told.
Exactly, as told by my boss.
Sorry, I took it back at you.
No, that's a good way to do. We still laugh about. In fact, I keep telling that a lot of people ask, which movie did you act in? I say I acted in the family movie, because for the first show, my family was the only family that went to the theaters to see it. We were all alone in the theaters, so that's okay.
Okay, good, very good. So that moves us from here to, very interestingly, you have been mentoring, talking to young students in various business schools and CA institutes as well, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So what is the most common advice you would like to give to these aspiring leaders? They will become CFOs, or they will be finance guys, boxed finance guys, and they will break out of the box as well. So such guys, what is your directive or suggestion for them?
In fact, I especially my CA classes to budding finance or CA professionals, every batch of mine. So I'm talking about close to about 200, 300 batches that I've handled. Every batch of mine, the last 15 minutes will all, irrespective of whatever the topic is, the topic I always conclude with is integrity. I think the first and foremost, even if it's not part of the main topic, I tell the organizers that the last 10 minutes is mine. You shouldn't moderate it. So here, that is the core topic. So I think for budding professionals, whichever walk you're in, integrity will reward you. It has rewarded me. I have seen so many people being rewarded richly in the long run. I think that's the first mantra. If you, as I told you, integrity towards your own people, integrity towards the process, integrity towards your conscience. I mean, you owe that to yourself. Let's not, for want of a better word, let's not pimp ourselves out for a few dollars. That's what I mean. I think we are worth much more than that. I think that's the first mantra. People will respect you. And the moment the respect comes, everything else will automatically follow.
Right.
I think second, keep reinventing yourself. Don't get into this comfort zone, saying that, you know what, life is good. I'm a CFO. I have my own time. I have my own flexibility. It's good. Then you are going to stagnate there. If you're okay with that kind of a life, great. But if you're aspiring for more, please keep at least half an hour a day to read about things that are not within your domain. When you say read, don't read an office document or the BAR Act of a Companies Act and say, you know what, my reading for the day is done. No. Think about AI, understand the marketing techniques, think about a new industry, something that is unrelated. Half an hour a day. Invest, and I think you'll be there.
Invest time in learning about the adjacent areas within your own organization.
Unrelated areas.
You will grow into those areas one day soon. Okay, that's fantastic. Nice tip. I'm just coming back to the main question, and I'll open the mic now for the audience who have keyed in the questions or who have raised their hand. Others also can raise their hand. The question that I'm asking is, typically CFOs are considered as guardians of risk, whereas CEOs are expected to take them. So how does Vijay reconcile these two?
In fact, I did a post about a few years back on the fact that a CFO should not be so conservative to hold the organization back, but at the same time, not be so reckless to let the CEO have a bull run. Now, that's it. Now we've defined the boundaries. What happens in between? Now, this is a science. What happens in between is the art that differentiates one CFO to another. There is no right answer there. But you can't, one thing I can tell you is the moment you're overly, just because you're guardians of risk, does not make you to be the spokesperson of risk at a very, very conservative level. Don't do that. The business has to function. And I see a lot of CFOs, I see a lot of organizations where people hate the finance team. They believe that whatever we say, the first answer is no. Things like, do you know your name? No. And then you think about saying, no, I do know my name, and then you answer. And your no cannot be the first answer.
Right. Good. Now we will take one question from the person who has keyed in. Rana Bhaumik, I request you to raise your question. Please unmute and ask the question yourself. Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Vijay and all the respected people.
Please go ahead.
Come from a GE corporate audit background and Ford Motor Company background as well. So to me, it is important to have a robust consequence management process rather than finding out who the perpetrator of the inappropriate action was. Because I personally feel that consequence management actually hits the board where it is needed most, whether it is the board of directors or the board of conscience. So I would also request Mr. Vijay's expert opinion on that. And thank you once again for a sterling session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rana. Look, consequence management, you nailed it. Consequence management is absolutely important. Now, that effectively you manage the outcome, and you'll have to see how best it helps the organization. But take a step back. We are talking about if we are talking about an outcome. What about you understand controls? What about the prevent controls? What are we doing to ensure that such an activity does not happen? Right. So unless we have that kind of a that is as important. Now, whether we find the perpetrator, whether you want to punish it, that's secondary. Consequence management is important, but I would also say, please do whatever you can to put in sufficient processes in place to ensure that these things are prevented. But that would be my 2 cents.
Great. Thank you so much. I'll request Dr. Prasad to come back. I think he has one question which he parked to be taken up now. So we have another 5 minutes, so we'll take that question. Dr. Prasad.
Yeah. So this is as much part of integrity in a completely different way, and it is about sustainability.
Ah, beautiful. Yes.
So now SEBI has mandated business responsibility and sustainability reporting framework for top number of entities. Number keeps changing, and to disclose their ESG performance annually. So is it now seen as a regulatory? To what extent is it a strategic advantage versus a regulatory burden? And what are the issues and opportunities that you see in this?
Primarily, I believe that legislating some of these things, the intent is good, but how often do we achieve what we have to achieve is a question that we'll have to ask ourselves. Let's take CSR as an example. When the CSR legislation came, I was pained because we as a society have denigrated to such a level where you need a law to say that you have a social responsibility, go and do it. But having said which, has the CSR really achieved the impact that it was meant to achieve originally? The jury is still out there. I mean, you talk to different people, they're going to have different views. In much the same way, the sustainability reporting is a step in the very, very right direction. But considering that it's too nascent, how much of the impact will it achieve? We'll need to wait and see. Look, IFRS reporting came in. The idea was to make the financials a lot more transparent. But the question is, has IFRS ended up complicating the financials for a layman? If you don't understand accounting, are you going to be able to understand the retirement benefit obligations, your lease accounting? Are you going to understand it from reading of financials? I doubt it. So has it achieved the end objective of transparency? I don't know. So I believe sustainability reporting will, I hope it doesn't end up somewhere there, but we'll have to wait and watch. But it does put a bit of onus on the companies to start thinking about sustainability, especially the large organizations. So to that extent, it's a move in the right direction.
Thank you very much. I think, that's a very broad We'll need a much more detailed discussion on that. But
Exactly.
thank you for opening the door. Back to Professor Rao.
Thank you so much. The one question that I wanted to ask you about your movie, people have various kinds of hobbies. That is their breakout time. They actually de-stress. So it looks like you got into acting in one movie, and you also are a musician and an RJ. So tell us a little bit about that, so that it's interesting for the young wannabe CFOs and CEOs here.
I think it's extremely important to have a hobby, and it needs to be beyond your finance domain. And I believe a lot of my personality has been driven by the fact that I had these kind of hobbies, primarily because, look, I saw my father. My father is a chartered accountant, but he did anything apart from practice. I mean, when private equity wasn't even a word in the early 90s, he used to do exactly that. So I've seen him break out of the mode. So obviously it makes me a lot more curious to go and explore new things. My brothers are into movies. My mother is a censor board member. So you grow up, my uncle's a musician, my other cousin's an actor, other cousin's a singer. So you kind of grow up in this kind of an environment. So I naturally developed a flair for it. The RJ was, again, thanks to my school, Vidya Mandir, where it gave you a canvas to go and explore yourself as a personality. So I participated in an RJ hunt. We had 4,000, 5,000 people. From there, 5 to 6 people were shortlisted, and we had a brief stint there. So I think in a lot of ways, it is important. For me, it helped because I found an expression to my personality. And I would strongly urge everyone to find something that expresses your personality, that is not numbers, that is not office, that is not profession.
Amazing. I think throughout the conversation over the last 60 minutes, you have touched upon three very important aspects. One is the power of self-expression. I'm starting from the last, actually. The power of self-expression in various forms. In whatever could be your hobby, whatever could be your natural way of de-stressing yourself or giving vent to what has been your flair over a period of time. I think that is the power of self-expression. Some of them write books. Some of them do talks. Some people like you go and teach and mentor youngsters and constantly tell them about what you actually mean by building integrity and helping them take off layers after layers in understanding integrity in practice. So that's what. So that power of self-expression is a very important aspect. The second one is the power of adjacencies, that is learning from adjacent. You have mentioned in response to a previous question also that you look around and see what's happening in your organization, what's happening in business, understand geopolitics and see what kind of bearing it will have at a landscape level across your industry. And if you are a guardian of risk as a CFO, you also are supposed to understand what are the probable risk management imperatives that emerge out of this geopolitical situation. I think at a broader level, that's important. So power of adjacencies or learning from adjacencies is an extremely important thing. And of course, the last one is the power of collaboration. You treat your employees as integral partners to your journey, and very meaningfully and genuinely, you give them a signal that they are important to you and they are the centrality of what you do and what you believe. Then that's nothing but power of collaboration. I think it is based on these principles, genuinity, and with which you communicate and with which you take them on board and make them inclusive, works very well in retaining the talent that you mentioned, retaining the kind of people that you want in your organization, and setting that culture template, and then over a period of time building that compass of integrity or ethics that leaders definitely will have, and it is non-compromising. And you also advocate that the punitive measures should be severe and should be well laid out and informed just in case something happens. I think best of the methodologies or best of the policies and rules can always be laid out. But if the people who are implementing those are extremely central to upholding those values, you can always beat about that. But I think building people as an investment of our time and energy is going to pay off very well, as opposed to having verbose rules and policies laid out and then putting it on the attic. So several such important conversational points that you generated today over the last 60 minutes. Thank you so much, Mr. Vijay Gopalan. It's very interesting to talk to you. You bring in a lot of a different kind of energy to the conversation. If you permit me, there is one hand that has gone up. Mani Pramod Vadlamani. Shall we take it?
Sure, but by all means, by all means.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Mani. Mr. Mani?
Thank you so much, Sudhakar Garu and Prasad Garu. It's a fantastic session by dear Vijay. It was an amazing last 1 hour knowing your viewpoints. I have actually a couple of questions. One of them is like you mentioned, once we move from the execution to the art of storytelling and how do we execute that storytelling. So you also need to have a bit of flair and charisma. Is there anything can we develop that, or we acquire that over the years, or something is that a spark someone will have, can take it? I would like to know that.
Okay.
And the other thing I wanted to check was, is there anything, we have so much in terms of like we are moving, we as a nation, moving, also getting into the manufacturing, and we have known for our IT years, pharmaceuticals, and then, but we still do not have our own big four sort of a thing in accounting. Is there something we can do, or can we get there?
Yeah.
Any your views as a leader? I think it would be great.
Sure. I'll make it brief. The first one, you definitely, it's charisma, flair. I don't think it's a spark that people need to have. If you had seen me, if you had seen me 20 years back, I swear you wouldn't even recognize me. And these are things that we develop, we observe others, we practice, we consciously try telling ourselves certain things. For instance, you don't need to look good, but you can look presentable. That's what we speak about grooming, right? When we say some people are blessed with inherently great looks, but all of us can groom ourselves well, and that is what is going to set us apart. So it's like that. So don't worry, it's never late to start. And from my experience, I can tell you, it can be developed. All these skill sets can be developed. On the second bit, on the big four, I've been waiting. In fact, there have been, when I was part of the PE fund, you see a lot of private equity investors saying that we need a big four as the auditors in our portfolio company. They put it in the shareholders agreement. But I was very clear I wasn't going to do that in the investments that I have done. I made it a point to say that the auditor's appointment, we will also be included, but it need not be a big four. Let it be an good Indian firm. So, but I think to get to a big four, the audit profession, first of all, needs to be respected. And the fact that the audit profession may not be respected stems from the fact that there is a lot of, it brings me back, there's a lot of integrity compromises from the auditor's side. You see the kind of things that are happening from the auditors, as long as there's a piece of paper to justify, they know that their professional judgment is not going to hold in good stead. That's not going to help us. That's not going to take us anywhere. So I think the profession needs to be respected, and the only way that this profession will be respected is when we uphold that principle of integrity. That's the only thing that our profession rests in. So all the best for that.
Thank you,
sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mani, for that question. Thank you, Mr. Vijay. It's been wonderful, as I was mentioning, to learn from you and to converse with you. We'll keep in touch. Probably you have also expressed in the beginning of the conversation that you have a great respect for ICFAI.
Absolutely.
I'm very happy to hear that. As a brand custodian, I'm very, very happy to hear that. ICFAI has been now in operation in terms of 40 years of its existence in higher education. Wow. Across the country. We have roughly about 20 campuses across the country. We are into management, engineering, law, architecture, social sciences, paramedical, so on and so forth. We have campuses in Northeast, we have campuses in unmetros, we have campuses and business schools in metro locations as well. So there's a huge diversity, and we would like to chug along the growth story of this country in our own humble way. So I would definitely request you to speak to the students whenever it's possible, whenever you're traveling across the country. We'll not lose that opportunity of inviting you to our campuses nearest to you.
You're asking me to do something that I'm passionate for. Why would I ever say no?
Great. Thank you so much. I also want to thank Mr. Pattabhiram for recommending such a wonderful guest, such a great leader who has given so many inputs for all of us. And one single takeaway from which all other things emanate is that the bedrock of your success as a leader lies in integrity and how you champion integrity. So that's a fantastic takeaway for this Friday evening. I want to thank all the members who have joined and raised interesting questions. Even before joining, you raised the questions, and after joining also, you have keyed down lots of questions. Thank you for helping us conduct this meaningful conversation. Please keep joining every Friday. And the next Friday, we will not be hosting this session. Next 2 Fridays, we'll take a break, not because there is any festival or something, but somebody is traveling. It will be remote locations. I'm actually going on a trekking to Machu Picchu to South America. So it's very difficult to actually connect from there. And I request you to excuse me for that. So 2 Fridays is a holiday for us now, given that fact. And we'll come back on 19th of September with a great leader, and we'll continue our learning. Thank you so much for your patience, and thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, keep Googling and keep understanding what kind of RJ roles our young and dynamic and handsome CFO, CEO has played. So Google Mr. Vijay Gopalan. You will get to know more about it. Thank you so much for joining, and let's meet again. Have a great Vinayaka Chaturthi celebrations that are happening over the week, and stay safe. See you on 19th of September.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend and good night.